Yes, recording in progress, and there are only 12 shopping days before Christmas. Do you realize that, Pat? You should be out shopping. I think it's 12. Is
Dude, I don't think I've ever been in a shop at Christmas in my life.
that right?
My poor wife, in fairness to her, she says that the last couple of days of Christmas, if you get into Derry or go up to Letterkenny, she says it's just traffic, 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 and the stress of trying to find a parking space, trying to get into a shop, joining queues. She says you have never done it, and you just sit there, and on Christmas Day, she says you sit and have your glass of wine and your turkey and ham, and you think it all just falls on the table. How right she is. Uh,
I used to find that when I was more nimble than I am now, that going into town in the afternoon of Christmas Eve was very clever because very few people were shopping at that stage, I found.
yeah,
And if you went into a place like Tesco, they would have an awful lot of stuff reduced because they had to get
yeah.
shifted because they're going to be closed for the next couple of days. But that was when I was young and at myself. Now I like you now. I just sort of sit back, let it come to me. I don't even know
Yeah.
there's 12 shopping days. That's only a rough estimate. But what a way to think about Christmas. How many days have I left for shopping? Huh?
I,
That makes sense.
well, yeah, I don't go shopping full stop. I don't go shopping on the 1st of January. And I don't go shopping on the 31st of December. So it doesn't make any difference to me.
Okay, let's talk shop now. Let's talk about Stephen Collins. Now we know that he has got a fine name, probably originally belonged to a very honourable clan, but he's gone off the rails for a long, long time now. He has an article in the Irish Times, is it? Where
Yeah.
he's condemning, not condemning, but he's saying that Sinn Féin are claiming their performance was a good one in the last election a few days ago, a few weeks ago, and that this is essentially bullshit. Would you agree with him?
Well, it's not 100% wrong, but he's not like Jude. You can listen to the same tune, and one person says it's lovely, another person says it's crap. It's the Sinn Féin. Right? Okay, let's get a few facts on the table. They didn't do as well this time as they did the last time. They were down about 5%. That's that's uncontrovertible. But let's get a couple of things. Jude, I remember very, very clearly. I think it was about 1995. It's not all that long ago. Sinn Féin were on 2%. Sinn Féin are now the second largest party in the Republic of Ireland. That's in the space of less than 40 years, way less than 40 years, right? Uh, the issues that this election were almost unique to Sinn Féin in the sense that this whole immigration thing, the asylum seekers, impact directly on working class areas and like people, people and who are subsiding or basically getting by on low wages do not vote for Fine Gael, who they see traditionally as the landlord class, the doctors, the lawyers, the accountants
Yeah.
type people. They vote for guys, who walk around the streets like them, and a lot of that's where the Sinn Féin core vote is. Well, when you put in a lot of asylum seekers and immigrants into those areas, and then those people can't get doctors' appointments, can't get hospital appointments, schools problems, all the rest of it. It impacts disproportionately on Sinn Féin, and Sinn Féin got it wrong, Jude. Let's get that right, and but they were doing the right
In
thing.
what way
They
did they
were
get
they
it
were saying,
wrong? What way?
in the sense they were getting it wrong on the sense that uh, the people they were talking to felt that Sinn Féin wasn't representing them because Sinn Féin were saying, no, wait a minute. We're not going to condemn immigration. We're not going to condemn asylum seekers politically. Donald Trump, placed that they didn't, so they lost the sort of core vote. And then on top of that, they had the sort of the various in-house domestic scandals. Them how they handled the making money affair in Belfast, Brian Stanley
Mm.
down south, and there was a couple of other things. So
Yeah.
I remember a TD she left on the day before or something, all that sort of stuff. But Jude, overall, they've gone from 2% to the second largest party in Ireland. They had some sort of growing problems, which I'm think they'll probably sort out. Mary Lou McDonald had an absolutely election campaign, a superb election campaign. And I heard quite a few Sinn Féin people said for the first time in their lives they'd wished that the campaign had gone on for another week because they said they could feel the momentum changing. And by the way, the momentum was changing because the facts they started at a very low base, and by the time it was finished, they were actually well up. So,
Yeah.
Jude, it's half full, half empty. Not
Aye,
like Stephen Collins doesn't like Sinn Féin, so he's always going to find fault.
aye, that's right. I think that's a fair summary of it. That the compared to 2 years ago when they were really high in the polls for a long, long time, and
Yeah,
then compare that with what their performance, as you say, down 5%, bad election. But on the other hand, if you compare it with the number of things that were being fired at them about a month before the election, they did
yeah.
pretty well, pretty well. And they got an
Mm.
extra, when it comes down to it, as you say, they're the second biggest party. So, I suppose you'll live to fight another day, maybe. Stephen Collins is a bit monotonous. He'll forever at this kind of thing. Maybe we're the other side of the coin, though, are we? We're always saying,
No, well, the reason I'm not here all the time to defend Sinn Féin, but what it gets pisses me off is the establishment in the South. Basically, I don't know, like they call it delays or whatever, but they like to sort of spin, Sinn Féin all the time in a negative sort of way. Like, I think Sinn Féin should be treated like every other party. When they do something right, give them the credit, and when they do something wrong, slam them. But
is
this
it? Yeah.
absolute non-stop in the Irish Times from every which way, and they're supposed to be the liberal voice, eh?
Uh-huh. Well, there is one. I think there's Justine McCarthy has an article in today. I didn't get around to reading it, but I think the headline was suggesting that really Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael should give reasons why they're not entering or prepared to enter into coalition with Sinn Féin. I think that's very reasonable. And I'm delighted to see that there's a journalist with a little bit of guts to ask the question or pose the
Wait,
question.
Jude, can I stop you there? Mary Lou McDonald said something, and I heard my own dear missus on the other day. She was just a point she made. She said, there's something, she says, absolutely, the way Fianna Fáil, and particularly Micheál Martin are saying, there's something, unclean type, when they were sort of talking about Sinn Féin and Sinn Féin supporters. We will not touch them with a barge pole. What does he think? It's just an arrogance there. And he's trying to say it's not, but it is. They're sort of trying to say they're the Sinn Féin supporters are the undesirables, or the what would we say, the deplorables, or whatever the word you want to use.
Well, I wouldn't fault them for trying to put their opponents in the worst possible light, because most parties do that kind of thing. But I
Yeah,
would fault them for not coming up with a reason why they will not accept them in coalition. I mean, is it that they smell bad? Or is it that they give them dirty looks? Or is it that they've not got good table manners? Or is it that they're afraid that if Sinn Féin came into government, they really would be established as a party that would be hot favourites for some years to become part of the
yeah.
government? It's because we forget, take a long view, I say. We
Mhm.
forget that, oh, well, we don't really forget, but we could forget that for 100 years, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have run the South. And if Sinn Féin get real traction in government, that'll be over. There'll be no
Yeah.
more, bicycle, two
Well,
pedals.
Micheál Martin, Jude, you're 100% right. But the other thing as well, Micheál Martin has said that Sinn Féin's economic policies are incompatible. But,
And what
Jude, when
way
you
did he
check
say?
them
He
out,
should
they're
have
not.
said what way. Tell us what
Exactly.
way. I
Right.
mean,
Jude,
the fact of
they're
the
not
matter is,
incompatible.
he put up a housing policy, right? Sinn Féin put up a
Yeah.
housing policy. Well, you say maybe Hal Martin says, "Oh, their policy rubbish." Well, tell us how it's rubbish. Compare it with yours. Give us a few facts rather than this sort of
Right.
blanket. You know.
Yeah, and the other thing as well, he's trying to say, the thing about taxation, Jude, and corporate tax and all the rest of it. The Sinn Féin people have gone to London and met various big finance houses, and they are not. There's no big deal to it. But he's trying to say there's some big. When you check out Sinn Féin, Pierce Doherty said that the last alternative budget was costed by the Department of Finance and their independent experts, and it met all the economic tests for
Mm.
viability and all the rest of it. So I'd like Micheál Martin and somebody else to come out and tell us what's the big problem economically. The other thing as well, Jude, let's get this clear. I laugh at it because every time I hear that, Fianna Fáil, the Republican Party, that like Fianna Fáil under Micheál Martin has become far more West Brit than Fine Gael.
Mm. Mm. I think, I was just saying, that Fianna Fáil, if they're going to say their housing policy doesn't match with Sinn Féin's, they should lay out in what ways it doesn't match with it. But maybe given the fact that they're never going to do that, Sinn Féin should have done that. They should have produced a document, 10 points. This is what
We intend to
I'll
build so
say
many
this is
houses.
what we say, this is what Vinnie Gill say.
What they
Nice
say, yeah,
summarized thing, facts. And let
yeah,
people
facts,
see that because it's all too hazy.
yeah.
So I don't blame Michael Martin for trying to put as much uh, clear green water
I
between.
but Jude, can I ask you? Is it because Fianna Fáil, the reason they're so anti Sinn Féin is because maybe Sinn Féin today is what Fianna Fáil was 30 years ago?
It could be looking at the historical face in the mirror. Okay,
Yeah,
mind you, I would say one thing that for Sinn Féin is closer to the working class and people who are deprived than are Fine Gael, certainly, and Fianna Fáil as well. Although
aye,
Fianna Fáil has improved its showing in Dublin. But here's a fact: the Capuchin Day Centre gives
yeah,
out Christmas parcels or food hampers to the poor. And they opened their doors for that at 9 o'clock there during the week. And 3,000 hampers were gone in, say, half an hour. And lots of people were still there waiting to see if they could get some. What
yeah,
kind of state is that you, Pat, are running down there? I mean, it is
yeah,
disgraceful. They admit themselves they got billions and they're going to save it for a
mm,
rainy day. Jeez, these guys are drowning.
yeah,
5,000 people or 3,000 food parcels gone and loads of people unable to get it. Poverty in the figures that say is 62,000 people in the south live in a state of constant poverty. Can you believe
mm.
that?
Jude,
62,000.
I have no problem believing that. You see, I, I've said this before. See when people your friend Stephen Collins and all these other people in Irish Times and RT and saw prime time and all this sort of stuff, and when government people come on and they say we're awash with cash and our policies are such and such and such,
Yeah, yeah.
should what you know how corporate Ireland and how the elite are doing does not a sort of what would you say? The narrative doesn't fit with me, Mrs. Doherty, who has trouble. Maybe she has three or four sons and whatever. Trying to get shoes for them and clothes for them and make sure they go to school with a warm food. Jude,
Mm,
Jude, if I went down the town in Letterkenny, which is about 20 minutes from where I'm sitting now,
yeah.
if I was going down just to get a cup of coffee in the morning and a sandwich, it would cost me 11 or 12 euros easily, maybe 15. Right. If you're getting low wages, and there's plenty of jobs that are not paying big wages in this part of the world, and so on, so on, you know, you're not going to be able to do that. And with rents, Jude, and certain other places, 1,200 a month, there are a lot of people every day, Jude, struggling from day to day. And, just I keep saying this, Jude, and I'm actually getting bored repeating it. But there are two Irelands. There's a nice middle class of Ireland that vote for Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, and they tend to be over 45. They've already got their house and they've got their car and their nice gold plated pensions. And then there are other ones who have got sort of fickle jobs and no homes, live at home with their maybe live in a bedroom with their mothers and fathers, and who struggle from day to day with sort of relatively low paid work. Dude, that's a reality, and I can get you people not too far from where I'm sitting now. That applies almost like a photo fit.
Mm, mm. It's a, I don't understand that Sinn Féin don't shout about it a bit more because it really is. It
Mm.
flies in the face of reason. I can accept the fact that they say, "Oh, there's going to be rocky times ahead," and there probably will be with Trump in office in the States. But that doesn't mean you still have these people like that today are in serious need of support, and they're not getting it. Okay, let's move on to another one, Pat. I just get depressed talking about that, given the fact that we say, oh, 12 shopping days ago. 12
Uh,
days to survive in many people's
many,
look. Okay, there's a thing in the Irish Times where it's proposed, they're proposing that children who should not be isolated for misbehaving in schools, right? You know, they're
mm.
isolated, they're put in a room
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they're thinking about just like corporal punishment once was a standard thing. They're saying they should stop doing that as well. What do you think, Pat? Would you be in favour of that?
I'll turn on you. I'm going to defer. You're the former teacher
Okay,
here.
I'll tell you without a doubt. I definitely would hold on to it, but I would develop it in some way. If you've got a kid misbehaving, you know that the kid will act in one way if all his peers are around him or her
Yeah,
and watching them and having the exchange with you. But if that same kid is in a room with you without his peers looking at him, or so he
yeah.
doesn't feel he has to act, there's no point in acting a big man. They're not watching.
Mm,
Then he's very often a totally different person. So I
mm,
believe that isolation, in that sense, being apart from the class, is good for resolving points of conflict. But the thing that I would do is, I gather that some schools they just put them into a room, and sometimes even lock the
mm,
door, leave the kid there. Um, but the idea is that they just leave them on their own. But I mean, that's
mm.
no kid likes that, and it doesn't make sense. They should be given
Yeah,
something constructive to do, or better still, the teacher or someone like the teacher should come in and talk to the kid and find out what's going on and see if there's a way of getting them to start doing what they're supposed to be doing when they come to school. But this
yeah,
idea we'll stop isolation because isolation is bad. It's so limited in thinking, and it very often springs from a mentality which says you committed the crime, you'll do the time. You know, you were
mm,
bad in
yeah.
class. We'll isolate you in a maybe a locked room or certainly a room where you're not be allowed to leave. So there's my
Yeah.
rant, Pat. What do you
No,
think?
no. I like as I've said before, I'm surrounded by teachers and my family.
I
I
know.
know the greatest circle. And one of the things that I know I've heard, I've been out at night and having a few pints with various people, and you hear they say, and it always comes up. This is, what do you do if everything, if all sanctions against those who are acting or misbehaving are taken off the table? What do you do? Is every little bollock's allowed to do whatever the hell they like, and you can't slap them anymore. Which, by the way, I'm not exactly in favor of slapping kids anyway.
I'm against it.
But the other side of the story, if if there's 29 or 30 people in a class and one little shit is acting up, and the other 29 is supposed to have their education totally disrupted, and everybody play ball with the wee boy that's acting up or the wee girl that's acting up. Not at all, Jude. You have to have some sort of rules for that's in favor of the majority, not the minority. So if you take that person out of the class and the other 29 can get on with their work, Jude, like it seems to me, what you're saying is absolutely 100% sensible.
Do you know one of the things that I used to say when I was a teacher, and maybe I didn't practice it enough. But if you've got a kid who's really acting up, right, consistently, those
Yeah,
things like taking them out and talking to them after the class, away from their mates, away from their mates. I
yeah,
used to tell student teachers, if kids acting up, don't try to sort it out with them right there and then. I say to him or her, see me at the end of this class. And all the other kids will pick that up. And the kid
uh,
who's acting the bollocks will pick it up as well. And you might find that he calms down quite a bit by the end of the class. But I think that one of the things that isn't half used properly is parents. You know, when
mm.
parents get the phone call from the school, the usually is, oh God, we're in trouble now. Now, there's two ways of looking at that. Maybe they
Is
should.
that still true? Is that still true?
Well, it was certainly at one time. The last
Yeah,
time I was in contact with schools, which is about 10, 15 years ago. Um,
mm,
but the mistake that many schools make, I think, is that they're not like politicians. They're not in constant contact with the parents. They should
mm,
try to develop a positive relationship with the parents and ring the parents when the kid's doing very well. Say, you're Johnny, I just want to let you know your Johnny did a superb piece of work today. And parents
mm.
respond to that the same as everybody else. And then when you come and say, listen, Johnny was kicking so and so, then they'll be more open to it. The fact of the matter is, most parents want their kid to behave in class and they want the kid to learn and do well in education.
Mm.
So why is it that teachers, by and large, see parents as something of an enemy? They're afraid of them. They don't
Yeah.
want them in the school. I sort of see
But
this
is it
word.
not a case sometimes, that years ago, I know from my parents, if the school had a rang up my mother and father and said, young Pat is acting up today, Jesus, Jude, I'd been absolutely,
But
to
that's a
use
long
that
time ago,
colloquial term,
Pat. That's the problem, you
I
see.
long time.
That's not
I would
now.
have been shitting myself. But
Yeah.
see now. I think half the time when the school rings up and says, "We Johnny's acting a bollocks," they say, "Oh, wait a minute, our Johnny, I don't believe that. There's something wrong with the school."
Yeah, because you see, we have I think teachers and education in schools generally have put themselves in a kind of an opposition position against parents rather than as partners with parents. I say to students, use the parents as the second leg of a pinchers and squeeze the little bugger. You know, the parents at them on one side, you're at them on the other side, and that'll soften their cough. And it's true. I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't want to punish the child, but I do think there's an awful lot of opportunity to do good stuff in cooperation with
Good.
parents.
I'll leave you with this one. I knew a guy who was a teacher at St. Column's, and that's all as far as I'm going. And he said one time he found himself in a position a teacher had done something that was totally inappropriate, not sex or anything like that,
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
said some remark in the middle of class to somebody that it shouldn't have said,
yeah.
and so on, like somewhere along the lines, my 5-year-old is smarter than you, you dumb whatever. Right. The parents took grave exception to that. Parents came in. Your man said he had to stand there and say to the parents, "No, I can't agree with this." And he says, "No, someone." He says, "I sat and listened to them and agreed with every word." He says, "Oh, I'd love to have punched the teacher in the face." So
Uh,
teachers find themselves sometimes, and yeah,
yeah, and the old thing is, you see, the schools tend to close rank when they see the one of
aye,
the
that's
teachers.
exactly what the point. He said, "I was defending the indefensible."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway,
On that note,
what about the situation in
Jude, you were
Syria?
chatting earlier on today about the way when Princess Di died, there
Oh
was an
yes, a
outpouring
couple
of
of big
grief.
funerals.
That
Yeah,
this week there's Dickie Rock and so on, and
aye.
it's an amazing, your view and this sort of canonization of people when they die.
Well, Pat, I'll tell you, they won't. It won't matter a damn thing to them because they won't know they're dead.
Yeah,
But the people it will matter to may well be the family and the friends. So while on
yeah,
the one hand, I think this canonization of just ordinary people is
yeah,
daft, and the president of Ireland and Jesus, all the politicians and all the rest, and they're saying he was such a wonderful person or she was such a wonderful person. It does get over the top, and you get a bit annoyed with it. But
mm,
at the same time, I understand it. And when you're grief
yeah,
stricken, if you love the person who died, you take any support you can get. And the fact that other people turn out and speak well of him or her,
yeah.
it really is it's a balm for the soul. Would you not think? It
Yeah,
makes you feel that wee bit
absolutely. No,
better.
no. The President Higgins sent his aide de camp to
Yeah,
Dickie
yeah.
Rock's funeral and
I saw
so
the
on. And
photograph.
no, but he aired the other side of the story. Judy, I think you mentioned them too. And Jody Gormley, remember Jody? Not well now. It's Peter Canavan's the one I remember best from
I don't
the
remember Judy.
1995. Yeah, But Gormley, I think, is the only one other one that scored in that 95. I'm not 100% certain of that. Anyway, I was reading a wee bit about him this week. And
Yeah,
in a local community, people like us, a guy had played on the All Ireland final, and that was some historic time for Tyrone and
yeah,
so on. And apparently, he was a genuinely nice guy and so on. And a small town, and Trullick isn't exactly the center of the universe.
oh no,
And can you imagine, for his parents, well, his mother's still alive as far as I know, and his brothers and sisters, and he's a young family. He's only, what, 52, 53.
yeah,
And I was
yeah,
reading some of the stuff, and, and in a strange sort of way, I thought he deserved it all because, in a small town, people like him are role models. And apparently, by all accounts, he's a totally decent human
aye,
being.
aye,
And I think when somebody's passing like that, it's only but right that the good things that they've done, like Shakespeare's, that is
aye.
recorded.
Well, it's the other way around. Shakespeare says he says the
Aye,
sick
the good is
men
often interred with their
perform and the
bones.
goodness is buried with their bones. Let me come back to Dickie
Yeah,
Rock for a minute. Did you ever see Dickie Rock perform? I
yeah.
think you were too young, Pat. I have a suspicion you were too young.
No, I saw him at the Fiesta. And by the way, he's the only man I knew whose hair grew considerably more as he got older. When I saw him, and I was maybe 16 or 17, he was
Yeah.
near enough bald.
Uh-huh.
Fast forward about 10 years later, and he's this big fucking,
Full
no,
head of
pardon my
hair.
language,
Yeah.
head of
What
hair.
did you think of him as
You
a
know,
performer, Pat? What did you think of him as a singer?
he, I think he was all right, but Dickie had aspirations. Dickie thought he was the Irish Tony Bennett and so on.
Oh,
And,
I think
and
I always thought that he thought he was the Irish Elvis Presley.
that was Brenton Boyer.
Ah, well, that's true. But Dickie, I mean, Dickie used to do a lot of that gyration, and the girls would shout "Stick it, me,
Aye,
Dickie," and so on.
aye.
But I
Aye,
used to go. I used to go to the show band era was really big, certainly in my
aye,
experience, in the early '60s and on to the late '60s. Huge, certainly around
yeah,
Dublin. Uh,
yeah,
in Dublin, there was a certain snobbishness. There were students and people who wouldn't be seen dead at a dance. A big
yeah,
ballroom where Dickie Rock on the Royal Show Band and so on, Clipper Carroll, where they were
yeah,
performing. They would go to the tennis clubs or the
yeah.
the rugby clubs or that kind of thing, where there were smaller groups playing slightly more sophisticated music. The truth of the matter is, and I don't know if you agree with me, Pat, but what the show bands used to do, including Dickie, was for the great part simply re-sing the songs that were hits by original artists in the States here. And I always think that's a mistake. I really think there's a lack there because all the time in your head you're listening and you're saying, "Ah, for God's sake, the original was twice as good as you are."
Aye,
Stop kidding
yeah.
yourself, would you? But on the other hand, I I used to really enjoy them because one of the things is the halls were full of women. Full of
Absolutely.
women. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
And the floor literally used to heave when there'd be a fast
yeah.
number. The floor, the way they
Aye,
say what is didn't bring the house down, but they really made the place a bounce, and that was what happened. I also thought that somebody summed that up, the attraction of dances, and that's where most of Dickie's stuff uh, dancing is a vertical expression of a horizontal ambition.
hey, I remember somebody wrote a book too. Geez, that's how we but anyway, remember somebody wrote a book, one of the show about
Isn't it true,
send them
though?
home
Isn't it
sweat.
true, Pat? Before
Uh,
you go on, isn't it true?
Absolutely. Aye. But
Go ahead.
remember somebody wrote a book called Send Them Home Sweating.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, you could hardly breathe in those halls. Certainly about Dublin.
Absolutely.
Jesus, there was thousands.
The what do you call it? The Fiesta in Letterkenny, which was my hometown. I remember there was a big sort of can Narvis or can there was a big long floor, but apparently they got the floor was Canadian pine, and
Oh,
knowing a lot of people on it almost sort of sprung,
aye, that's right.
and they used to put talcum powder down on the floor so that everybody sort of slid around. It was unbelievable.
Well, I definitely remember that heaving of the floor. I'm wondering, was it me or
Yeah.
was it the floor? Anyway, let's leave those days of youth and ill-spent youth away. Um, let's talk briefly, because we're running out of time, about Israel and Syria and the West, and well, particularly the UK and the US. What do you think of this guy who's come in and who's sweeping all before him? His real name apparently is Ahmad al-Shara, but he was known up until now as Abu Muhammad al-Jolani. But now he is
Yeah.
Ahmad al-Shara. What do you think of him? He's kicked out
Do you
this
know,
Assad gang.
I've lost. Right, here's the first thing. Apparently, these guys are basically Al Qaeda by a different name.
Where? That's right. He was
Al
in that.
Qaeda was Al Qaeda was a terrorist organization until it became a friend of the West. Now, here's the thing: Israel is occupying Palestine. It's occupying Lebanon. It's now occupying Syria. It's bombing the Syrian Navy, air bases, everything else under the sun.
Do you
It's
know why
land
they're doing
theft.
that, Pat?
What?
Do you know why they're
Yeah, are
bombing
they so weapons don't fall into the hands of terrorists
of
uh,
extremists?
or
Extremists
extremists,
was
right?
the word they used.
And in the meantime, not only are they occupying three countries, they're also threatening Iran. They've carried out assassinations in Iran, and they say it's all to do with self-defense. They're acting with total impunity, and the West is sort of saying, "Have you heard a word of condemnation from the U.S.? Have you heard a word of condemnation from Starmer?" Or from what do you call her, Vanderhoff, or what the hell do you call your woman in the EU these days?
Yeah.
Jude, I am sitting here and I got to admit, I am absolutely gobsmacked at the hypocrisy, the abs, I am ashamed almost of the West. We're sitting watching what do you call it? Massacres, genocide, totally amoral
Mm.
inhumanity. And these are the people who used to condemn China and Russia. For
Yeah.
after this, Jude, they will have no moral authority to condemn anyone.
Well, it's a long time since there's any moral authority in my view. That stopped in
Yeah,
about 1948 at the latest or the earliest, because when they dropped the atom bomb on Japan. But
yeah,
the thing is that this guy had a price on his head. He was
yeah.
$10 million, was it? They were going to pay for
He's
anybody
now
who
a friend
turned
of the
him in.
West. Yeah,
But they've changed their views now. Um, Donald Trump says we should keep out of Syria.
yeah.
Would you agree?
To a large extent, I would, Jude. And I would hope the Israelis keep out as well.
I would
Jude,
totally agree. And they
yeah,
shouldn't have. Well, Israel should be told get out. But I would
get
agree with
out.
you. I agree with much of a considerable amount of Trump's foreign policy. His idea,
Yeah,
I know he's an isolationist, and there's problems with that clearly. But at the same time, the problem has not been that America has been too isolationist. US, the US has been far, far too interventionist. They wrecked
yeah.
Iraq, they wrecked Iran, they wrecked Afghanistan, they
Libya,
wrecked
the
Libya.
Afghanistan.
And those places are now the whole government structure has been knocked out of them, and there's just a series of warring tribes essentially, from what we can gather.
Yeah.
And now all of that is thanks to the wonderful West that said they would come in and sort things out. I,
There's a famous thing on Facebook that's now about 10, 15 years old, at least that, maybe 20. Remember after 9/11, probably 20 years old, General Wesley Clark said that, and he's been interviewed live on some sort of program. He said after he went into the Pentagon and he met some guy after 9/11, he says, what are you going to do now? He says, having a clue. He says he went back on the Friday and he met the guy and he says, we're going to destroy 5 countries. The second last one was Syria, and the final one would have been Iran. And Jude, it looks like that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to reform the Middle East so that that America, their ally Israel, is allowed to act with impunity with American arms, etc., 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 and so on. And Jude, let's get this clear: it's all about oil, and it's about wealth, and it's about whatever else. It's got nothing to do with humanity or human rights or whatever.
Pat, supposing we'll finish with this because we're in a couple of minutes. Supposing you went to the house next door to you and
Mm.
set it on fire, and as the people came running out, say there was half a dozen people living in the house,
Yeah.
you were sitting there with a rifle and you picked them off, you killed every one of them. What do you think had happened to you?
I guess I'd be spend the rest of my days in jail.
For sure. There's no question about it. You would be. Israel has been doing that multiplied by, I would say, 1,000, 10,000, and nobody gives a fuck. That's the truth.
Yeah.
They just let it go. America, for that matter, is behind it because it's funneling money. But I was listening to Joe Brawley, and he was making this point, that the things that we hold reprehensible, like some young fella, he says, first of all, most crime like that, at that level, of stealing, say, a couple of, uh,
Cans of beer or something.
couple of pounds of beer, that's usually, almost always, it's from poverty-stricken people. But he says,
Yeah.
if you go into a country, plunder it, destroy people by the thousands, you're okay. Nothing will
Yeah.
happen. I'll bet you any money you want to put down now, Pat, and I'll give you any odds you like. Netanyahu will never stand in court and be tried as a war criminal, and he'll never see the inside of a cell. Never.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Dude, I was a young reporter and I remember a woman, she had stolen butter or something else. And I remember the judge was sending her to jail. But dude, she wasn't buying, she didn't steal, clothes, like fashion stuff. She stole eggs. It was a supermarket in Letterkenny, I remember, and so on. And I remember the solicitor had to work hard to get her a suspended sentence. I was thinking, good, merciful Jesus. There are people stealing right, left, and centre. Charlie Haughey had stolen absolute millions and so on. He never spent a day in jail, but a woman who stole money because she was in poverty, was going to go to
Yeah,
jail.
yeah.
I thought that, there's a two-tier system here
Oh, for
or
sure.
a 10-tier system.
I'm really annoyed with myself. I forgot I had intended to talk about that CEO that was shot in America.
Yeah.
There's a
Leave
whole
it to Monday.